Gray, Board of Education.
Vince Scarpetti, Superintendent of Schools.
Chad Lombardi.
Jim Leahy.
Ajit Jain.
Kevin Houlihan, thank you. Item number 3, public dialogue. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Okay, all set. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Item number 4, why we're all here, Orange Board of Education. Dr. Scarpetti, Mike? We're all set. Welcome.
Welcome.
Good evening, board members. So Mike, if we go to the next slide. This was shared, I know you may have not had an opportunity to see this. Mr. Kapp and I, and again, Mr. Kapp is the board chair of the Board of Education, and we put this together. I want to extend my gratitude to the entire board. Mike, if you could go out to the next slide, please. I have some board members in attendance here. If you don't mind, Mr. Foley, I'd like to introduce.
Please do.
So from your left, I have Ms. James, followed by Ms. Rodriguez, then our chair, Jeffrey Kapp, Mr. Kapp. Then we have our vice chair, Ms. Messina Mullen, and finally, Mr. Scarinzi. I want to thank all the board members, not only the board members in attendance, but everyone who's supported the entire staff, specifically our students. I want to mention them along with that letter is that we take in consideration, again, focusing on our students always, but we also take consideration of the whole entire district. We know our community members, the majority of them do not have children that attend our schools. We appreciate their support, paying their taxes and supporting our school systems. We know there's a direct correlation of how well our schools do and the property values, but we keep that in mind with everything that we do. In addition to that, I want to thank the Board of Education staff that are present behind me. There's going to be a few line items particularly that I will point out and thank them more further, but I appreciate their due diligence assisting me with this budget. Our mission, not sure how many of you watch our Board of Ed meetings. I'm extremely proud of our board. This is something that was not influenced by me, but when I became superintendent of schools here, this was implemented by the board, and they say this every single meeting. Not to compare other districts. Other districts all have a mission statement, but at times, from my observation, I truly believe they create a mission and it almost sits on the shelf. This is a living, breathing statement that we say, and I share it not only because of the impact it has on everyone, but it correlates directly to our budget. Highlights for this current year. We have our updated social studies curriculum. We just updated our educator evaluation plan, our mental health social work. I want to take a pause here for a second. You may recall in past presentations, we were fortunate enough to receive a grant where we were able to hire a social worker. Part of that grant is the first 2 years, the state paid for that person. We were entering the third year where they're paying 70%. Next year, that will be part of our operating budget. We continually focus on our security and infrastructure, on online safety. There was a collaboration that we had with the Orange PD to provide online safety measures and supports for our students and parents. And of course, our security infrastructure involves a multitude of things, not only having our school security officers, but in addition to updating our cameras and our language comprehension instruction. Our goals are to promote active learning and high expectations for all students. We continue to support our staff through strategic purchase of curriculum. Again, I'll get that into more detail with regards to that during the budget. Maintain instructional program while responding to the changing needs of our students. That's very important to us. When we look at the changing of needs, that could matter in many different ways. So we want to continue. That could be, and again, number 3 and 4 sometimes connects about the prioritizing the health and well-being. I just mentioned the social worker, our school security officers. Again, we'll get into a little bit more detail in a moment when we do the line item. I share this every year. This is, I think, a poignant PowerPoint slide, which you may recall, the expectation, I believe, of this board of when I first came here is, Vince, ask us not for what you want, ask us for what you need. This is specifically regarding staffing and enrollment. There's times where I've met and presented in front of you, and some board members have responded of past presentations of, say, for example, if there's a certain amount of enrollment, then all of a sudden there's and I think that we'll get to this, but enrollment numbers. And I think Mr. Leahy at one point said, again, prior to my arrival to the previous administration, how do you know you're going to have 5 kids in first grade next year? How do you know you're going to have 3 kids and 3 kids? And it was a projection. We don't know until the year goes on. So why I like this is, number one, you know what we currently have, but number two, besides the COVID year, it's increased. So if you look up that student's budget, just imagine and envision in your head, that's when I present to you. There's a number I give. Though when we come and present the following year, the student's actual has always increased. So please keep that in mind. I appreciate the support of my board, but the question I received when I presented them, Vince, is there something that you don't need that we need to put in there before we approve this budget? And my only, not even concern, but just what we need to be ready for is possible increased enrollment where I need additional staffing, specifically teachers. So I know in the time past, again, going of what I believe in, and please, if I misunderstood this board in any way, Vince, ask what we need, but again, if there's any changes, please don't hesitate to come to us, preferably in July for the next year. So I just want to make a note of the increases, but also about a little asterisk that right now I think we're fine with staffing, but depending on what may occur in the future months, I may have to come back to this board. You've seen this, no surprise. Salaries and benefits. Again, I call the salaried piece, again, the staff that we have is our human capital. I'm happy and proud that is the largest piece of the pie. We'll go into more details with regards to the smaller pieces. And then at the next slide, and again in the letter, but shows the 3.9% that we're requesting to the Board of Finance. We show the past 10 or more 11 years that what has occurred. Just coincidentally, you know, that 2015-16, that's the example I said earlier, where presenting in March, some months passed, increases happened in enrollment. That was a jump of what was originally asked in March. Teachers were needed. The Board of Finance supported us, and that was an example of 1 year where I had to come back and ask for more staff. But that just shows a little historical data. This is the dollar amount that we're requesting for the 3.9%. And if we could take a moment, because I hope I don't sound like a broken record when we go to the line items, but if you envision these buckets of contractual obligation, insurance and other benefits, and the bus contract and all others, this encapsulates the budget right here. I received some feedback to actually have that percent of proposed increase. So if we add this real quickly, if you add the 24 and 57, what is it? It's
81.
Thank you, sir. 81%. Other benefits adding up, we're up to 88. That is the majority of our budget. Just to let you know, again, the last slide that you'll see is the insurances is going to jump out at you of how much that jumped. But 50% of insurances is a reason why this is, our budget is where it is. And the all other is a small piece of what we're asking, only 7%. But if you could keep this in mind when I mentioned certain line items, hopefully your brain will go back to this and envision, okay, this is what Vince said a moment ago. Because these are, what I'm envisioning in my head is almost like buckets of those percentages and how that connects with these line items. This is a summary of each line item. At your desk, we've been asked in the past to identify what these roles are. So you have that if you need to refer to when we go over the line item. Mike, they received that, correct? And so we're ready to present the line item. Mr. Leahy, do you want to go over, to put that on the Excel, or is it okay if we continue on this?
I think for historically, and even for my board, they might not have been around, but you made mention to what happened a number of years ago, and
Yes.
certainly before your presence. So you've been elected for first couple of years to be on the Orange Board of Finance. And I used to be a teacher. I taught seventh grade math for about 6 years. I was going to be the president of the local teachers association up in Weston, Massachusetts, right next to Wellesley, outside of Boston. And every year, and it would best be, Mike, if you could go back to page 7, where you have the, it's the best I can do, and it's where you have the
Enrollment.
students' enrollment, basically. So what we used to get is, for example, and Jeff, I'll just talk to you, and so, you know, it's just that we're having a Coke down the field. It used to be that in this particular budget season, they would show the data. And the data would say, in grades 5, we had 200 kids, or whatever number, 100 kids. That's so magic, and then grade 6, next, you know, that year it was whatever, 110 kids. So let's just stick on grade 5. So they'd have grade 5 sitting there for the current year, and they'd have grade 6 in the next year. In every single year, in every grade, in every school, it magically went up by 6 students. So I'm sitting there one year and I go, wait a minute, if there was 100 kids in grade 5 this year, now I know more students could come in. But we're still looking at a budget that next year, Joe, is gonna be 106. I mean, this is every grade, every school. So I thought that was a little more magic than I was elected to ask questions about, so I asked some questions about. All right, so that's the background that way in the history of life, all right, in this town, in my experience here, all right, that he was referring to. And thankfully, we don't have that anymore. All right, we have real numbers. You have issues, come see us. Kevin encourages it, we all do, all right? But it wasn't without some data and experience that situation occurred. I just wanted to make sure that kind of had a rounding background, all right?
And we appreciate the board's feedback in order to do what we now typically present. But again, I can't echo the gratitude that I have and the board and my staff and the parents that if anything's needed, please come back, but let's focus on what's currently,
Okay.
that's in front of us, so.
Mike, if we
thank
can
you
just
for
move that thing over while I was sticking it to this one here. And what we're about to do now, if there are people, first time here, this is what we do every year with the Orange, with our own town budget, all budgets, right? We do that for a full day back in early February. And what we're about to do now, and what we're gonna show on the screen, and you can just have at it, and everybody on our team, we have this data in our handout. Has everybody got a handout? We might need one more, Mike, if you happen to have one. Thank you. So I've already teamed, so I'll just go in order of what we have in our handout, but we're gonna mostly talk about the budget one, all right? So in the 4 tabs, we have it on one file now. What you can see here is a listing of, it's not just teachers that do the work in the school system. Over time, we've created this standard work where we can see I think this is the second page in your handout, team. All right, where you can see where the other staff, including the teaching staff, are by, I don't know if we've got this, Mike. Yeah, we have a good job on setting it up. You can see the number of full-time equivalents, part-time equivalents, and the various school systems, Mary Tracy, Gracebrook, Turkey Hill, Peck Place, and then at the central office, and also at the district, all right? And you have here just the numbers per location. Or we're not gonna go through it all, but just so that you're aware that this is the kind of standard work that Vince has put together over time. And so you can see where the resources are, all right, that for which our residents are paying their tax dollars, and our children are benefiting from the experience of having these resources service them. That's the first tab. Okay, everybody good with that? I think some of us have seen this before. All right, second one is a very handy definition of when you start talking about names, what, a couple of line definition or word definition of what they are doing. I mean, it kind of matches up with the first one, Mike, right? Yeah, so that's what that is. The projected enrollment, we're not going to get into the details, but just so that you can see it, and it's, again, standard work that we receive by each year, all right? And in the white column, but Vince has already summarized it, in the grades, and you can do a deep dive into the material, all right? We're not going to do that here tonight. But what we are going to do is go through together as a team and ask questions as we wish, as we go through. And Vince and Mike, you can kind of guide us through maybe a page at a time. And just, just like over a soda, like I just mentioned to Jeff, just tell us what's going on. And I'm going to guide you guys to column H, which is a budget for the request that's been made in overall by Vince. And here was the adopted budget from last year, and they also keep track of where they are in the current year. So we more or less kind of peaking at column H, where we were last year on F, but the variance is the difference between the two, and Excel has done that in formulas, but talking to it will be Mike and Vince, so why don't you take us through?
Awesome, thank you, Mr. Leahy. If you could look at line items 101 to 105, those are contractual obligations that we have. Again, if I could take your brain back to that other slide about those buckets that I envision, so that covers that category. You'll see a lot of line items from 106 down that have remained flat, meaning there's been no increases, that has stayed consistent. And then with dues and fees, here's another piece. One, I don't want to confuse, and if I do, please ask me so I could clarify. I may say contractual obligations and then contracts, meaning we may have contracts because of maintenance, because of software, websites, dues, like that you'll see in line item 111. Everyone has increased their dues and fees. So you'll see a slight increase. And then you may be aware of the IRS mileage that has increased from 67.70 cents. That you'll see that. So again, in a nutshell, and again, we could take, as Mr. Leahy shared, we'll go page by page, but that is what you see as the major increases. Again, contractual obligations, and again, you'll see that in another category of special education of a larger increase compared to other line items. But that's what we have for the first page.
Okay, so it looks like we're increase of 131,461, a little bit of money percentage-wise. Questions from the board?
No, the only question I had is, I mean, this looks like a very well put-together budget.
Yeah.
One of the things that comes directly off the page is, it looks like your teachers' instructional salaries. So it looks like you based
We're trying to do it one page at a time, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right. You're just trying to, looks like they based their budget off of the projected actuals for this year on teacher salaries. So if you look at the number, 8.2 million, add 2.75% to that, you'll get your number and budget for next year. So rather going budget to budget, it looks like you
But
went
Kevin,
actual budget.
could I ask you what line item are you referring to?
102.
102.
Thank you.
Yeah. It looks like they're projecting off of this year's actual rather than going from budget to
I
budget.
think I could clarify that, Mr.
Yeah.
McNabola.
Yeah.
What occurs sometimes, which you may be familiar with, is many times teachers retire.
Right,
At this time of the year, we may not know,
right.
and so that's hard to tell.
Yep.
But we received notification of 2 teachers, so that may look like it's actual, but it's knowing that, and again, they are
Right.
teachers that are at the top of the scale, so,
Yeah, you'll bring somebody in at a lower step, lower scale. Right.
yes.
Gotcha.
right, good question, Kev. Thank you. Anyone else? John, Joe, John? Okay, so we're ready to go on to the second section, which I guess would be the second page, or at least a part of it, starting with the thing, the curriculum development at the top of the page.
So here with curriculum development, in my opinion, this is where that was a smaller percentage of that pie. In years past, we may have asked for more funding. There's a term that I've used in years past of train the trainer, where we, instead of sending all our staff out, we send a specific amount of staff. They get trained, and then those trainers can now train the entire staff with regards to professional learning. There are some times that we do have to send people out, and that's why you'll see an increase on line item 124. And when you move down, this is the big piece that I want to share with you is line item 131 and 134. So you see what I see as a fairly large decrease of almost 52,000 of interns and substitute teachers. The principals do a great job of, we just don't get interns from universities or colleges that say, hey, listen, they want to go to your district. We actually interview them, the principals do. They do a great job of aligning interns to their specific schools. At times, there is a difference of people who are interested in coming to Orange as an intern. Again, those interns are people who want to become teachers. And what occurs is, anytime that we've had extra funds, and as you know, again, appreciate your support and the board supporting this, and if you could look at that second line item I shared, district permanent subs. I'm going to connect the two in a moment, but a district permanent sub is someone who's committed to the entire district for the whole entire year. Unlike a regular sub where, if Mr. Lombardi is a sub and he gets a call Monday morning, he could say, oh, great, I'll go to Turkey Hill School this morning. We could call him the next day and he goes, I don't feel like working today. Don't have to go. These people who are district permanent subs are committed to going to the schools each and every day. And they have been lifesavers. And I mean lifesavers in a sense of, we start off with a lower number. So for example, you see 10 FTEs. Last year there was 8, so we're increasing that. And now to connect the two line items, 131 and 134, it's reversed. So you could see an increase of 51,404, or a decrease where we think it's more important to get those district permanent subs versus interns. Again, this was permanent, especially after COVID, but even this past year, there's been the norovirus, there's been still COVID going on, people getting the flu, and it's very challenging to get a teacher or a permanent sub in those classrooms. In addition to, just as a side note, the principals do a great job. So again, if Dr. Arterberry at Turkey Hill School has a district permanent sub assigned to her school, but does not need them, and then Peg Place does, Mrs. Lass was on the phone, hey, Denise, what do you have? So it's working together in order for we could have an adult, and some of these district permanent subs, not all, are certified teachers, which are as a great impact. So we've kind of made a flip with regards to that. And then to continue, or any questions with that before I go on to the last section of textbooks and
What we'll
support?
do is we'll stay with the page that we can see.
Okay.
Here's what I'm thinking, and I do have a question on 124, modest question.
Sure.
It just sounds to me what you're saying is, we used to spend 51,000 this way, and now we think we're gonna get more bang for our buck, but spending 51,000 that way.
Correct.
That's doing more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I see. What is up on the 4,000? What are you doing with 4,000? Or I can see in a prior year, you actually spent 13, so it probably comes as no surprise.
So this is what I was referencing, Mr. Leahy, about regarding that sometimes we have to send people out. And it changes, right? So again, if you look at, let's go to column D,
Okay?
where we asked for 9,000, which we typically have done in the past.
Yep.
But we were actually, end was over 13,000 because we sent people out. This year, we're projected to be the same. So sometimes that professional learning that we send our specialists out to, it rotates. So you could be a PE teacher, and then every other year, there may be something that we want to send them out. So again, next year is a year that we know we're going to be sending people out. So instead of it being over, we want to make sure that we are asking what we
Break
know.
it right in. Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the items we can see on the screen, team?
So how many hours subs work every week?
It's about 7.
7? Thank you.
Okay, Chad?
Are you reducing the number of interns
We are.
district-wide?
Yes, we are.
So now, if a position opens up as a result of retirement, or someone leaves, the teacher leaves the district, are the interns like the farm team? Is that where the immediate attention goes, or?
It's actually, at times, but what's also happens is more of the district permanent subs. So as I shared, they could be certified teachers. Not all have to be, but they could be certified teachers. And what my principals have shared with me is that it's a great learning, right? So again, you decided to commit to Orange for a whole year, and you are a certified teacher in an elementary. And
As a permanent sub?
as a district, you show up every day at Racebrook School.
Sure.
You're there every single day. What, Ms. McNeil, using that as an example, could say, okay, look at this guy, he's proven himself. So that sub-farm team, so to speak,
Yeah.
it lends us, even though this wasn't the intention, it lends the eye of the principals now see, this is actually, instead of taking a lucky guess, if Lombardi's good or not, if we never met him,
Yep.
right? It almost gives us a taste or feel of that teacher, if they're right fit for Orange, the hard work, the ethics, the showing up time, commitment. So it's almost reversed. We've gotten that from the district permanent subs.
Gotcha.
Last call? All right, next one starts with textbooks, and we'll see how much we get on the screen. Good.
So the textbook and supplies, all schools, and this is where I've mentioned their names. So again, behind me, I have Dr. Arterberry, the principal of Turkey Hill School, Ms. McNeil, the principal of Racebrook School. You could raise your hand just so the board could.
Bless you.
Ms. Watson, the principal of MLT, and Mrs. Lasser, the principal of Peck Place. They were on that main page, but I wanted to call them out during this section. So just so you're aware, we share when we present to the board when it starts, and it's odd to think, but soon after school begins, the budget process begins. I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to my principals, but also the entire staff that they work with, because this is zero-based budgeting, right? What I encourage them to do is, when you ask for things, just because you asked for this last year, doesn't mean that you need it this year. And we've had some great conversations when they would meet with myself, Mr. Gray, and Ms. Koch about having these conversations. So, again, compliments to them, and you'll see that. So just pointing out an example of 137, instructional supplies. There's a decrease. So what these principals have done, instead of saying, okay, I need pencils, erasers, markers, whatever, go down the list of what you can imagine instructional supplies. They actually have gone to the classes and saying, okay, what do we actually need? And what do we need to use before needing that? And so again, thank you to them. One of the other things that really fluctuates, I usually point out 144 science supplies. That rotates because, again, when you think of a unit, and let's talk about an erosion unit, if we use sand, once that sand is used, we need more sand. So that usually rotates, and even though you don't see this, all the 4 schools are combined with this category. And so it's very different of if I had the 4 schools up, like, you may say, well, why does Turkey Hill need an increase of science, but Peck Place doesn't? It's because of the need of those specific units. So again, extend my thanks to the principals and all their staff for submitting a budget that's truly needed at the schools. And classroom supplies, again, this is where those buckets of that previous slide, that PowerPoint, that you're gonna hear me say probably repeatedly, just costs. Costs of supplies have gone up, specifically, paper that's for the copiers.
Well, if you're doing the same job at that kind of a level of increase, that seems like a catastrophic success.
Very proud, and again, this is where I like to mention some pastures and such, because again, who knows what's gonna happen next year of,
Roger that.
instead of a 453, it could be more, but
Yeah,
the ebb and flow, and again, having the focus of zero-based budgeting, not just say, oh, well, I asked for this last year, let me just put the same in this year.
Plus 2%, 3, yeah. But,
Yeah.
Clearly, you don't do that.
Yeah.
yeah, or add 6. Okay, last call on this one. How about all of special ed? I don't know if I can get all on the screen. I may have to skinny it down a little bit, but why don't we take a stab at it, team?
So again, as I extend my gratitude to my staff, Mrs. Ito, the Director of Special Services, appreciate the time and diligence that she puts here. As some of you may know, like all budgets, it's a projection, but specifically with special ed, we could receive a student tomorrow that's not budgeted, and it could impact our budget severely. So I appreciate the whole entire special education staff and their flexibility in meeting the needs of our students, and that happens more than one could imagine. But if I may point out that, just as I shared before, line items, the first few, 151 to 157, are again those contractual obligations. Think of the pie chart, that blue. Direct student services, you have a slight increase with that, and again, that's because of the cost of assessments and services that have come up. And the last thing I want to point out is line item 172, you see an increase of almost $10,000. We recently negotiated the contract with our owner-operators, our bus drivers, and they have received an increase. You'll see that again for our regular ed, students that are regular ed, you'll see that in a moment.
We have one more line probably. I'll just get it all on the screen right there, team. A little over 100,000, almost 110,000 on $3.5 million, 3.4, 3.6, I guess, was the approved budget last year, 3.61. And it's going up a little under 3%. The reasons presented. Questions?
Yeah, just a quick question on the special ed transportation. Do you have any concerns about next year's budget being too low, considering that the 2-year prior actuals were 292 and 310,000, and you're budgeting 255? Just,
Go ahead, Mike, if you-
So part of what picks that up is excess cost. When we
Oh,
get that
okay.
back to
Yep.
excess cost reimbursement.
it out?
We do, yeah. So that helps us out in that line item.
hopefully, we were talking about excess costs at our last meeting. Hopefully you'll get more excess costs, but it's not looking too good right now.
No,
Yeah,
it's
the
not.
governor
Vetoed
vetoed
today.
it, yeah, so we'll see what occurs.
It's not his election year. Okay.
And it-
Okay, well, politics, whatever. It's quite a drop, though. It goes 78 to 60, right?
64 to 78, I think it was the proposal. Yeah.
We're going to 60.
No, we're going to 78% funded.
That
If
was
the
last,
40 was approved.
Correct, yeah,
but this year, they're budgeting for 60.
correct.
That's quite a drop. That goes down 18 over a base of 78.
Yeah,
So that's 2 out of, what? 20 to almost 24% drop. Okay. Anyway, enough for tonight, James. Okay, we now go to the next section, which is
So this
the
section,
green ones.
again, encompasses from, again, that pie chart, but specifically that other slide I showed you about not confusing contractual obligations with just contracts we have. So if you see any increases with the technology, that has to do with increases, we could go, if you have any question on what is that, Vin? So just to name a few, the Frontier rate increase for our phones, Frontier for gigabytes, I mentioned about websites. So again, anytime you've seen a increase, with the exception of district tech and depart supplies, those are just items that the tech department has asked to increase. So again, it's very minor, but everything else. And then I don't know if it's on here, if you could see, oh, you can. The down to transportation where you see another large increase of almost 51,000, and that's line item 195. I just mentioned again with the transportation of special education, this is for the one I referred to, the regular again.
Are we adding a new bus inside of that increase, or is that
That's
just?
that is included, so again, the board has been supportive
Okay.
of providing that. We do have increases with regarding enrollment at Peg Place School with Smith Farm and Firelight. I know I've shared with some people, possibly in this room, but board members and just conversations. You know, my money would have been on Smith Farm where we would have gotten the increases, and we have, but we've gotten more from Firelight, so.
How about the network service? Is that Frontier?
It is.
Okay.
And then I know there's just one, on my piece of paper, there's just one other thing I like to make a note. It's all on one page, but it's not seen on the screen yet, right below transportation.
Oh, okay.
All
Let me
the
get it up.
increases?
I'm sorry, Kev?
So again, I appreciate
increases.
the negotiating committee of our Board of Ed members. Ms. Messina Mullen, who's present, she is one of them, Mrs. Hadlock. They do a great job, but again, I also want to compliment the bus drivers. If you see here, it says transportation, again, for school visits.
Oh, I'm
It's
sorry.
a little self-explanatory, but at the end of the year, MLT visits their home schools, again, which is Racebrook, Peck, and Turkey Hill. Racebrook, Turkey Hill, and Peck Place School visits the middle school. That is now taken off, that anything that is happening in the district, in the town of Orange, there won't be a charge if we do that at a certain time. Probably next year you won't see these line items because we are going to be cognizant and make sure that it's at the certain times where it supports our owner-operators. But again, extending out to the negotiating committee and our owner-operators for agreeing to this, so.
So if like the other one where we flipped them and we were doing more or less, basically, the FTEs, the 10 FTEs, right? It was a trade-off. It sounds like, is it in the regular transportation that you've worked with your contracts to have them cover what the activity is for which there used to be a cost here?
No. So the increase to the just transportation is just what we negotiate.
Okay.
And then trips, and again, there may be trips that are outside of the town of Orange or not in that time.
Okay.
Usually the PTOs may pay for that. That's negotiated separately, but we put that in our budget because it's separate from the routes that are given to the owner-operators.
I don't know, it looks like an extremely unique initiative taken by the people who had done this. I mean, we don't see a lot of this. So kudos. Seems to me.
Again, extend my gratitude to the negotiating committee of Ms. Hadlock and Ms. Messina Mullen. They are a great support, no matter if it's negotiating with our owner and operators, but every other bargaining unit we have.
Yeah, it makes me wonder whether I'm doing enough for the town when I see people doing this, so good job by them. All right, anything else, team? I don't want to scoot over or something, we may have another, so I'll give you one more time on the upside here, and we'll move on if I don't hear anything. Okay, we good? How about we go down into, where we at? I forget where we're at now. Facilities, is it?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So facilities here, again, the majority of what you see in line items 203, 204, 205 is that contractual piece that we have. And then you'll see some increases, again, going with that theme on line item 207. Just costs have gone up. So whatever supplies are needed, cleaning, sanitary products, just cost has increased. Parts and materials with regarding BOE in schools, that's line item 211. And you may have heard this, I think we may have discussed this, but I think you may have discussed this at other meetings that I've viewed online. is the HVAC, the contracted services. That has increased slightly. So by state, we are required to have our HVAC inspected. There was a little concern initially because of having 4 schools, and just imagine the districts that have more than 4 schools. We are allowed to at least do 1 a year, which helps the budget, and helps kind of put it out with regards to having an inspector come and check our HVAC. And then utility, you'll see again those just rate increases on the bottom.
All right, so going down through the 221 questions on this page then from the team. Okay, so you have the total facilities there. Now we get into the next,
And this one is just that big, again, just envision that slide that I had where I broke down those 4 categories and the insurance piece. This is it. Again, I forgot, I think it was 54% of the budget. Again, these are the increases that I've talked about. I think I'm singing to the choir here that I think all of you know that we are self-insured. From time to time, insurances stay the same. Sometimes years it's decreased. This is a year that it has increased. I believe that, you know, this was foreseen somewhat, maybe not as much as we expected, but we know that after COVID occurred, more people would be going to get elective procedures and such, and so we're seeing the impact of that. So that encapsulates 223 to 230. And then our remaining line items are the retirement reserve that we have for emergencies, our cafeteria subsidy, and the 21st Century, that's our after-school program, who provides that income to us for the services that we provide them of using our buildings.
okay, so we're seeing what we said earlier in the PowerPoint. That was the overall for the insurance thing, which was, I think, we had a number there, but we can quickly just jump in and do it again, to see what percentage of the increase that we're being presented with tonight, that it's, wow, it looks like it's 64%. Anyway, it's a large percent of the overall increase being requested. Questions from the team for line items up there?
So your self-insurance plan is it tied with the town?
It
You
is.
guys are still,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, which is good. John's a stop loss, 275, 250? 175, okay.
We had 8 people over the 175 stop loss, and we had 1 person with over $1 million in claims. So, total cost of the year was over $10 million.
Yeah.
So for a small town participants, a lot of money.
We're seeing a similar trend on the town side too,
Downside too.
claims-wise, yeah?
On 227, defined contribution plans.
Yes.
17. Is that some type of a match?
Yes, so anyone who is not a certified staff member, so that could be a custodian, that could be my central office staff. After a year, they were able to contribute to the plan here with the town. And then I do want to, well, we'll go back to the slide whenever you're ready, Mr. Leahy. I think we might have to do a swap unless you have the slides, but I do want to point another line item that may impact this budget, and it will not, I don't think next year, but I do want to just highlight something.
Which one, Vince?
It's on our slides.
Yeah, we gotta switch back to Mike.
Well, I have them here if you want to get to them. Yeah.
Whichever is easy.
This one here?
No, the one before that, Mr. Lane. So this is the same exact slide that I had here last year, which is the Right to Read Act. I just put the legislation. You may recall that, that basically, in my opinion, the State Department of Education is forcing districts to buy a program. We disagree with that. We have had conversations with the state. This impact could be hundreds of thousands of dollars to a district. So again, we're not putting that in. We're not projecting to put that in. I have to extend a gratitude for the effort that Dr. Russo and our teachers, all our teachers, our principals have put on this with regards to the impact. We believe a program doesn't teach students, teachers teach students. I want to say that again. A program does not teach students, teachers teach students. And the group has worked, meaning all our teachers, and it trickles down to our paraprofessionals, our principals, have worked extremely hard, even before this became legislation, of doing the best that we need to do for our students. While I think about it, I remember that Dr. Russo, who's our Director of Curriculum Instruction Personnel, she could raise her hand, so if people haven't met her, know who she is behind me. I wanted, as I envisioned, one of the things that we did, as, I don't want to say argued with the state, but discussed with the state, why we believe what we're doing is impactful and meeting the needs of our students. Again, think about that pie chart. I call that the human capital. It's not a program, it's the people that are in front of our students. And I want to extend a thank you to Mary Wheelander, who's one of our state reps who joined us and also spoke and discussed with us. And so, as
She
far
was
as
a
I.
former board member also, right?
She was.
That's right, okay.
She was, Mr. Julian.
that's
And
helpful.
so, as far as I know, it was tough to read the tea leaves in that room, but they haven't asked for us for anything since then. But I do want to make sure, again, with possible needs of staff in the future, or if something comes from the state, I did not want to have anyone of the board forget this and just want to remind them of this.
Vince, a couple of years ago, and what do they say in industry now, Joe? Full disclosure, like there's supposed to be some other. Partial disclosure. I send things that I might run across, and I'll send it to, well, I might send it to you guys, I might certainly send it to Vince, and now Mike, Jeff, certainly Pryor, Bill Prep. And I hadn't read something, I think it was on Honestly, Barry Weiss's, before it even became the Free Press, I believe, and it was a podcast with a woman who eventually had her own podcast, of 6 podcasts, and it was called Sold a Story. Sold a Story. I can't agree with you any more than what you said. Programs don't teach students, teachers teach students. If programs taught students, I guess we wouldn't need teachers, all right? You'd get the same result no matter what you put in the room, apparently, all right? I don't think life works that way. At either end, the student end or the teacher end or whatever. Is this more of sold a story, science or reading?
Yeah, I do
Like every
not
new
want to come
packaging
across,
there, or
yeah, I don't want to
whatever?
come across of knocking what I believe the state is trying to do.
Right.
There are districts that are having struggles, and it's interesting because there are districts that are not that there's not challenges or students that need
Right.
some extra services. I appreciate that. This is sold a story, and again, I appreciate it, but that was, brought to the district through Dr. Russo.
Right.
And again, you share that, which I appreciate, that you're kind of zoning outward of just looking at numbers, but the impact and what we need to do. I was speaking with Dr. Russo before this meeting. They have another conversation which I would like to share with you.
Offline, yeah.
And so, this is the piece where there are specific, and again, not saying this is occurring, but there's specific programs that you could buy. I think at first there were 4 or 5, and now it's increased. I'm like, well, why is it increased a little by little? I get a little skeptical, let's say, about why it goes from 4 programs to 5 to 6. And not knocking any district that may have a program, but I know what we're doing here. And I think there are districts that had those programs already that were approved by the state that are not performing well. So what's that do? So this is why we like to do our homegrown with many things.
Yeah.
And again, tying in phonemic awareness, phonics, oral reading, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, we are doing all those things. So again, it's taken a lot of work. Again, I extend it not only to Dr. Russo that I mentioned a few times, but the principals and all our staff, because it goes right to the grain size with our teachers. It's a lot of work, but it's something that we are proud of the work that we're doing. We showed evidence that to the state, And this is where we are right now, but I did not want to be remiss and not share that just in case I get something or a
So to
notification.
satisfy my need to know whether or not this head of the Department of Education at Columbia University, who is selling a program, did not help students read, my summary, not anybody else's.
You know.
But I think that that was the essence of what came out of that sixth series, is this type of program, Science of Reading, that similar in nature to what was advertised by the head of the Education Department at Columbia University.
Well, I think the science of reading is not a program.
Okay,
It's what you need to implement in order for a student to be able to read
okay.
and comprehend.
Does that
so-
include particularly phonic awareness?
Yeah, so
Oh,
again,
good.
that's the skills that we
Yeah.
teach, right? And so the woman that you're referencing has, lack of better term, sold a story, and again, maybe she did it with the best intention. I'm not here to
The road to
knock
hell
her,
was paved
right?
with them.
You
My
know,
mother taught us that
if-
earlier.
Yeah, so if I'm raised to cook a certain way, plant a certain way, build a house a certain way, but yes, that has come in question, very much so, that specific person, but there's others.
Oh, no, God bless.
Yeah.
I just, and it's way less. I mean, because once you lose years of that prime time of being that age when you only go through life once those ages, you know, the impact on, it impacts the budget and therefore we're kind of wasting money. Yeah, that's true, but that's not what's in my head. What's in my head is we're not doing the job for that student in that year, in that point in time. So if you're resisting this and it has any sniff of what I've heard before, I would encourage any parent in the town of Orange to just go online, check out Sold a Story, and check it out, and form your own judgments. That's all.
Are there any consequences to non-compliance?
We will see, you know.
Or has it been up to this point?
Not as of yet. You know, the voice of, if I could categorize from the State Department of Education, is we're doing what the laws say. We disagree with that, and again, it's interpretation, right? Anytime you read something,
Sure.
you could interpret one way, I could interpret another. But right now, I think we're in a good place, especially after that meeting. However, just because we talk about finances, I just want to make sure those two
Thank you.
items about possibly needing something
Yep.
of staff and this, I just want to, again, put that in the forefront of this board.
Does anybody have any other questions on the numbers? Because what I'd like to do, two things. One is with the size of your insurance increase, what you've come in with is admirable.
Extraordinary.
So, thank you and thank the board and everybody for their hard work on this. And number two is there should be a slide for some of the capital items they wanted to
I think
present this
it's
evening.
right here, Kev.
So this is new.
Well,
This
let me
is
put it
some-
on the, everybody can see it slide, show. There we go.
So this is new, where we're presenting to the Board of Finance. In past, we would present this separately. I believe that you are the, do they have the rationale, Mike? Yeah, okay. So if you have it, again, we'll be more than happy, but what we are requesting a building generator, paving the playground, blacktop at Turkey Hill, a refurbishment of the flooring at Peck Place School, and that's the media center, for those of you that have visited Peck Place. Refinish and reline the gymnasium floors, and then the bus stop arm cameras. We put the note of the HVAC upgrades as a note. We want to make sure that we realize that this is something that wouldn't go through the town. It would be a
Be a
bond.
bond,
Yeah, but in collaboration with Building and Grounds, which is one of our subcommittees, and speaking with the rest of the board, we just want to make sure that the town knows, especially the impact of having air condition, or not in our schools. Again, Peck is the only school that has air condition. MLT, we have window units, but the impact that has of the consistency of school and the climate at the school. So we just want to note that. We put that in every year of just saying that's a an important piece for us to share with everyone. But this is going to, I don't know about the next step of the Board of Finance being involved with the capital request, but we want to share it with all of you that these are our requests for this coming year.
What's a bus stop arm camera? When that comes down with the stop, it's got a,
It is, but does it come down with the stop, or the camera's already out there?
So when the arm opens, the camera's on the side of the bus and it turns on. So when a car is either coming this towards the bus or moving alongside the bus, it takes pictures that it's violating the stop arm.
it'd
So
be
one-
great if we could have the state fine people $1,000 or more if they do run that thing and get the money back that way.
They upped the fine for passing a bus with red lights flashing.
I believe in, again.
Whatever it is not enough, because I saw somebody when I worked in Woodbridge run over a little girl. And to this day, I can still see it. It was bad. Lucy Street was awful.
Is this in
So-
response to incidents that occur?
So we do get reports from our drivers, just because of the roads that we have in town.
Yeah.
Grassy Hill, Racebrook, and Orange Center, people are on their way to work, and they do go through, even on the post road, they'll go through, so we do
Really?
get them. Yeah.
My understanding that there was a time and place, and again, Mr. Cap may know since of his tenure on the board. Mr. Gray may also know because of his long service in Orange. But I believe there were cameras on the bus at one time. And they took them out because of how they are able to support that is through tickets. And I think at one time when they installed these cameras, from what has been shared with me, that they weren't culminating enough tickets in order to support the cost of those cameras. That's what was shared with me. I don't know how true that is or was, but this is something where we have gotten calls and we are concerned about
Okay.
the safety, and so we have put it back. And again, I don't know how many years ago, if that story is true, when those cameras were put on.
Yeah, so I want to say it was 2010 or 11, and it's a company that pays for all the infrastructure. They come in, they put all the cameras in, they put in the recorders, everything. You don't pay a dime, but the way they recoup their money is through the tickets. And they just didn't think that Orange was generating enough tickets
We're not bad
for
enough.
them to, to pay
Yeah,
for,
it is.
to pay for the equipment, so
But that doesn't, yeah.
it ran as a pilot for a year, and, but I think, you know, it's something that's.
So this
I
is
think
just a situation, so they put them in for free, it sounded like.
They did, yeah.
Okay, so this is the cost of doing it ourselves. All right.
And again, you have the rationales if you need to look them at now or at a later time.
Okay.
You have the rationales to look at that. And so, are you, no, Mr. Leahy's on the,
Final slide or a couple of final slides here?
so to summarize, we are respectfully asking the Board of Finance to support the 3.9% increase.
Yep.
And the last slide, Mr. Leahy, is just sending an incredible gratitude for not just all of you, but I know since I've been here, the Board of Finance has supported with any, again, needs, not wants. I'd like to extend my thank to not only my staff again, but the Board of Ed and other people. You know, Mr. Cifarelli is to the left of me. He's a phone call away, has always assisted with questions and helping out with matters. Donnie Foyer, I really have to shout out to him and his team. There's times where we are in a tough situation of getting our schools open, and not only does he help, he extends it out in order for us to do that. Mr. Zioli has been a strong supporter ever since I've known anything, again, needing, not just wanting things frivolously, but needing about getting things done. So again, I can't thank everyone in the community that at least I've experienced with has been a great collaborator and support to our kids here, so thank you.
Last call?
Thank you.
No,
Yeah,
thank
well,
you.
hey,
Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
This is
Yeah,
good.
Great job.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right, good. Yes, thank you.
Take a 5-minute recess?
Sure, yeah.
Is there a motion?
Michael?
Make the motion.
Second.
Yep.
Second by Ajit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. All right.